So now let's talk about how to make JSON pretty, right? So we've already done a section on how to use and interact with JSON. But again, if you start going out and making REST API calls that provide complicated JSON back to you, the problem that you're going to be running into is, like, you may be smart, you intellectually know what you're supposed to do, but then you just get this block of text and kind of get confused and lost. And so the point of being able to prettify JSON is that basically what you're going to be doing is you're going to be formatting the JSON response in such a way that it is easier for you to read. Again, this is one of the things we talk about with things like spaghetti code. You can have something that technically works perfectly that nobody is able to read, which is essentially this, And so what we want to do is we want to make that JSON response pretty so that we can go through and figure out which indexes it is that we're looking for. So in order to make a JSON look pretty, we're going to have to import the JSON module. So previously we did not have to import the JSON module for simply reading JSON, but in order to get the dumps function, there's a function called dumps, we're going to need that JSON module. We're then going to go and we're going to go out to that restcountries.com API and we're going to ask for all the countries that speak Spanish. We are then going to turn that into a JSON data type so that we're able to interact with it, and we save it all to response variable. We're then going to print out on the screen using JSON module.dumps function. And so what you can then do is you can feed in the JSON value that's come back. So response that's come back, that's what we're going to feed in here, comma, and then how far you want each index to be indexed by, or to be indented by. So you have a new record, and then under that new record, how far does it get indented? How far does it get indented? How far does it get indented? So this is basically going to be for your own use. So you can have it as 1 space, you could have it as 2 space, you could have it as 20 spaces, you can have whatever you want. This is just going to be for formatting purposes. One of the important things to understand about this is when we use JSON.dumps, it is going to turn the return here into a text file. So when you do this, or to a string, I'm sorry, it's going to turn it into a string. So when you do this, this will no longer be JSON. This response that comes back won't be JSON, so you won't be able to pick a particular index from this response. So you would not want to do response equals this, because then response is now going to be this formatted string. It's not going to be a JSON value. So anyways, so this is how you're able to print out the JSON return in a pretty way, and then you can use response with the brackets and the indexes that you're looking for. Now this is going to be an incredibly large return. I've shown this to you before. Again, it is going to be this disaster of a return here. So simply printing this out on the screen might not necessarily be useful for you. So that's why we're going to print this to a JSON.txt file, or I'm sorry, we're going to save this to a JSON.txt file so that it's easier for you to go through and navigate. So with open, JSON.txt, W for overwrite as file, file.write, JSON.dumps, response, comma, indent equals 2. So each thing will be indented 2, and that will save it to a file so it might be easier for you to read. When we go through and we then run this script, we can now see that the format of the file, the return, is a lot easier to read, right? CES, spaced in, official, Republica, common, blah, blah, right? So now we can see that this is actually formatted in a way that it wasn't previously here, right? This is just a block of text. Now using the dumps, we are able to actually format it into something that's easier to read. Now this is only going to be so much, again, because it's on the command line. So since I wrote to the file, I can go to JSON.txt, so I can open up that file, and this is now where we see the entire JSON return as a file, and we can go through and we can try to figure out what index it is that we're looking for. So we see this opens with a square bracket, so square bracket is list. List has index of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So at index 0, name common is Colombia. Right? At index 0, name official is Republic of Colombia. at this. So it's 0, name, right? Native name, common, Colombia. And that's how you go through when you try to parse this information. So you have TLD here. So TLD is the same as on the same line as name, I do believe. So at 0, TLD is .co. And so anyways, this will try to give you a way to get to understand how this data is supposed to look, to be able to figure out the index it is that you're looking for. So that's the basic idea of prettifying JSON. So using the JSON module and the dumps function, what this allows you to do is it allows you to turn that JSON response into a formatted string so that it's easier for you to read. It is important to understand that it is string. Once you turn it into a string, it's no longer JSON, so you can't access things at the index, so do be careful with that. But basically, this is a way to try to make it easier for the JSON response that you get back to be able to be read so that you can figure out the indexes that you're looking for. Again, with this, it's one of those things. Just grab a cup of coffee, sit there, play around for 5, 10, 50 minutes, and I'm sure you'll be able to find how to pull out the specific data that you care about.